Well, it's no longer theoretical. It's not a maybe could happen. It's on.
It's on.
The writer's strike is on. The Hollywood writers, which hasn't happened in what, 15 years? The people who write our movies and television shows, who really bring these things to life, they are now on strike. And it was something that I had a lot of hope and thought that they could avoid, but apparently they couldn't. So yesterday was the deadline when the current contract, the collective bargaining agreement between the producers of Hollywood and the Writers Guild Association was set to expire. And apparently they all negotiated right down to the 11th hour. And they tried to get something done, but there were a couple of things. Well, first of all, there were a few things they were able to come to some agreements on, but a couple of key things that they were miles apart on that have kept them from making an agreement and has led to now a writer's strike, which means soon you're going to start feeling it. Shows that are in production, shows that are getting ready to go into production, all these things, everything's going to be canceled unless you're able to come up with a deal. So contract negotiations are complex and deep and technicalities, but there are a couple of key issues here that I thought that we should look at. That these are kind of, while there's a million issues, these seem to be, from the reports that I'm reading, the key sticking points that prevented the writers and the producers from coming to an agreement. And I don't know how they're going to bridge this gap. Here's a couple of them. The Writers Guild of America wants a minimum 6 to 12 person writing staff per show. They understand how much work is required for these shows, how much creativity is required for these shows, and they believe they need to have a minimum, that the studio should employ a rule that there is a minimum 6 to 12 writing staff, all depending on how long the show is. The longer the show, the more staff. Now, apparently, the producers are so against this, they didn't even give a counter proposal. Like normally in negotiations, like Ray may say to me, hey, John, I would like
McDonald's.
They're not talking
I
about
would
the
like
Oscars.
1 week of McDonald's.
Yeah.
Now, in negotiations, I might come back to him and say, I'll tell you what. I'll give you 3 days of McDonald's, right? That's normally what happens. Offer, counter offer. Mm-hmm. But apparently the producers were so against this, having any kind of a writer's room minimum, that they just didn't even bother giving a counter proposal. They just said, nope. Because the Writers Guild of America, they're accusing the producers of saying they're saying the producers, they just want all writers to be freelance. They don't actually want to have writers as employees, as actual important people on productions. They just want to use them as freelance. And the fact that they're not willing to even counteroffer the idea of a minimum staff, writing staff for shows, speaks to that. So that's the one thing they're really far apart on. The next thing is the Writers Guild of America wants a guaranteed minimum number of weeks of employment per season, ranging from 10 weeks to 52 weeks, depending on the nature of the show. Again, this was one of the proposals that the producers refused to even give a counter to, because they want to treat the writers as freelance. They don't want to have to say, okay, we're going to bring you on to work on our show and give them a minimum number of weeks of work. They're saying, nah, you're expendable. So we just want to, treat you as freelance. Again, the producers are so stuck on this, they did not even counter. Now, at the end of the day, the Writers Guild of America put out a statement that basically says their proposals would cost $429 million a year, but the studio's counter offers would only cost the producers $86 million a year. That's almost 5 times. It's almost 5 times the difference from what the writers are asking for. Again, this is, if the Writers Guild is saying, if you take all of our proposals and what we've presented to the producers, it would cost them at the end of the day $429 million additional dollars a year. And the producers are only saying willing to change by $86 million. Again, there are other issues in these contract negotiations, but according to all the trades, these are the 3 main sticking points. And until they get movement on these 3, this could be a very long, painful, for the entire industry, writer strike. Anyway, Chris, as a union member yourself, a union who you guys are getting ready to go into negotiations with the producers as well for the SAG contracts. You see what happened? Does anything surprise you? What's standing out to you? Are these maybe not that big of a deal? Are these bridges that can be gapped? Are they really as far apart as they look? What do you think?
I mean, they're bridges that need to be mended. Absolutely. Our union sent out a email this morning too, talking about how we're standing in solidarity with the WGA, encouraging all of us to go stand on the picket line with them and everything too. A few actors I know are doing that today and tomorrow. Thursday over at Universal as well. So a lot of that's going on. I just want to be clear, because some people still have this idea of, oh, well, they'll just get new writers. They'll get better writers who have better, work ethics or things like that. That's not what's being talked about here. These aren't people who are demanding buckets of money. They're demanding basic living wages, essentially. Alex,
and by the way, the writers in the WGA, make no mistake about it. Anybody who thinks they know something, these are the best writers in the world.
Yeah.
Like, these are the greatest writers in the world. Not all of them are, but the best writers in the world are part of the WGA. Anyway.
Exactly. Alex O'Keefe, who won an Emmy for writing for The Bear. Really amazing, critically acclaimed show that happened this past year, right? Astounding. He took to Twitter and was talking about how when he was working as a staff writer, he was still broke. He was still on Medicaid. The studio would not fly him out to LA, so he's working out of his apartment in Brooklyn. When the power would go out, he'd have to go to a library to work with all of them. His heat was out during that. And I believe he also then had to thrift his bow tie and had no money in his bank account when he was accepting that Emmy. These are not glitzy, glamorous jobs. They very much are gig economy kind of jobs right now. And when you think about how much time and energy goes into writing a show, these staff writers, when you work freelance, typically you're doing billable hours, right? Now, some people could argue a billable hour doesn't make you particularly productive. But when you're a staff writer, you are treated essentially as a salary employee, and you are writing for hours and hours and hours. You are there all day, all night until things are done. If they need new scripts, new pages, you are doing that. It is a endless and often thankless job. So for them to just want to be paid adequately, to get rid of this mini room nonsense, right, where we have just a few writers, a handful of them, trying to scribble out pages and not pay them their actual day rate, which already isn't good, is kind of astounding to me. You can't have great stories without a storyteller. This is the bare minimum for excellent quality television and film. If you want to have great stories, you have to have great scripts. And how do you get those? You get them from great writers. So why don't we treat them like great writers? Why do we treat them like incredibly disposable individuals? And again, I'm sure there are some people who will say, well, you can always find another writer. There's all kinds of people trying to break into the industry constantly. I hear you. I understand that. But when you actually see the day-to-day earnings and livings of successful writers, it makes you question how this industry is run and where this money is going to, frankly.
I'll tell you where it's going to. It's going to the people who don't deserve it. It's going to the actors.
How dare you? No. How dare you?
No.
Not me. I'm a day player.
No, but actually, I think there is a serious side. On the serious side of that, what's hilarious to me is a lot of film fans who don't actually, and there's nothing wrong with this, who don't actually take a lot of time to think about the industry and why should we? We're watching a movie, right? But they'll go, when there's a dispute about an actor, well, they should just give that actor $30 million for that movie. This is the thing that's hilarious to me. A lot of casual movie fans will go, yeah, just give that actor $30 million. An actor that will literally stroll in, be on set for 2 months, recite lines that somebody else wrote, and then stroll out and go on with their life and go on to another thing. And a lot of casual movie fans are like, yeah, give them $30 million. They deserve all that money. What about the writers?
Yeah.
The people who actually write those lines that come out of those mouths? Those people are budgeting to make sure they know how to pay their rent. I mean, a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
And if you love Succession, and if you love Top Gun Maverick, and if you love Dune, and if you love The Bear, and if you love Breaking Bad, guess what? Those all came from WGA writers.
Exactly.
And they need to get paid.
100%. And when it comes to the SAG negotiations, honestly, it is, I know the actor thing was a joke, but it is still that kind of, Aaron would describe it as the journeyman actor, right? Your day players, your everyday folks. We're the ones who also are like, could we please be paid adequately for our residuals? That'd be kind of neat because it's different from streamer to streamer, and that's what the writers are focused on right now too. And it's this idea of, I love a movie star. I think movie stars are great. I respect so many of them, and I wish I could be like some of them. And that's like the ultimate goal at the end of the day, right? When you're really thinking about wishing on things and wanting to do your Oscar speech. But most of us just want to be working writers, working actors. And by that, it's just making a livable, comfortable wage. Being able to live in your one-bedroom apartment and have heat. It shouldn't be asking that much in an industry that has so much money being spread around. It just needs to be spread out a little more evenly. And I think that's a very fair and reasonable ask. And I would love for the powers in charge to explain to me, why is that not fair and reasonable? Tell me why it's not reasonable to meet these accommodations. Because I feel like at the end of the day, there's not a workaround of that.
Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? The writer's strike has now commenced. What do you think about the proposals going on? Listen, I'm certainly not saying just give the writers whatever they want, not at all, but come back to the table and make counter offers here. The writers do need to start getting a little bit more respect. The people who actually put in 10 times more hours and 10 times more work and 10 times more creativity than a lot of the people you see on screen, maybe they should get paid. I don't know. Whatever you guys think about this, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Today's episode of the John Campea Show is brought to you by Honey, the easy way to save when shopping on your iPhone or computer. Guys, more and more we enjoy shopping online, whether it's on our phones or our computers. And how many times have you gotten to the checkout and seen that promo code box and thought, man, if I only had a promo code, I could save some money? Well, thanks to Honey, manually searching for coupon codes is a thing of the past. Honey is the free shopping tool that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best one it finds to your cart. So here's the situation. You're shopping online on one of your favorite sites, and when you go to checkout, the Honey button appears, and all you have to do is click Apply Coupons. Then just wait a few seconds as Honey works its magic and searches for coupons it can find for that site that you're on, and if Honey finds a working coupon, just watch the price drop. Recently, Ann and I were hanging out at home one evening and we decided to order in, and the Honey button appeared. I was able to apply a coupon and I actually saved like $6 or $7. It was that easy to use. And Honey doesn't just work on your desktop computer, it also works on your iPhone. Just activate it on Safari on your phone and save on the go. If you don't already have Honey, you could be straight up missing out. And by getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting this show. Get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/Campea. That's joinhoney.com/Campea.